Hello, hello. And here we are with the new moon in Sagittarius forecast. So I've just recorded a video. Probably will load it a little before this one comes out, but I've just recorded a video to speak into Mercury retrograde process. And from the last full moon forecast, which was in Gemini, I pointed out then that Mercury had started the pre-shadow. At the point 2 weeks later of this new moon, Mercury is hours away from stationing retrograde. So this is very tied in to that Mercury retrograde video I did, and it might be a good idea if either if you have Mercury retrograde in your natal chart, or if Mercury retrograde is going over something very powerful for you, anywhere between 22 degrees of Sagittarius to 8 degrees of Capricorn, then I would definitely go and look at that video. In the meantime, this is more focused on the new moon in Sagittarius. And as we know by now, new moons are new cycles between the sun and the moon. They are new beginnings. They are points at which we would like to plant our seeds, make our wishes, set our intentions for the month ahead. Now, it's important to realize that you can set absolutely anything you want, but if you say a thing and then toss it away, it doesn't get as let's use the analogy of a plant. If you plant some seeds at new moon and then you forget you planted them and you don't water them, you don't check if weeds are coming to engulf them, then it might be a little bit of a struggle for them to come to fruition. If you pay attention to your intentions, to your seeds, then they are infused with extra energy and potency. And this really does make a difference. So sometimes setting, and this was a hard learned lesson, sometimes setting too many intentions and too broad an intention is less likely to easily come to fruition than if you are more focused and pointed and specific and spend some time with your intention through the month. So, and then the other thing is to set the intention as far as possible in alignment with the archetype of the new moon. So in this case, we would be setting our intention in line with the archetype of Sagittarius. So what you might do then, as I say, if you have something you really, really want to set an intention with and it's not very Sagittarian, then just go with what you know you need to do right now. If you work with this on a regular basis, you'll find that every month will lead you to something. So there's an area of life, a space, an archetypal thing that you will always find within that archetype that you want to set an intention of. So let's say Sagittarius season is here and you have a deep desire to travel further than your hometown, further afield than you've been before. This would be then the month to set that intention. It doesn't mean that by full moon or by the next new moon, you've traveled abroad, but it would be a really good time to set an intention for that, because travel abroad is a Sagittarius thing. If you're wanting to find funding for higher education and you're desperate to do some higher education, further studies, and you've been uncertain of how to do that, this is the time to set that intention. And setting the intention, I think I heard Mike Dooley say once that really, really resonated with me about manifesting. You don't want to just sit in your garage, put your info into your GPS on your car, and then expect it's going to happen, but you haven't opened the garage, turned the key, driven out of the garage, and headed in a direction. So manifesting and setting intentions, it doesn't mean that you just say the thing and the thing will appear. There is still an element of you needing to go out and get that thing, you needing to face the challenges and the challenges. And I said the challenges and the challenges, the enemies and the allies and the challenges that await and the gifts that come in the journey of getting to the thing that you're trying to get to. That's kind of like the hero's archetypal journey. And when we work with astrology, we are so often bringing in Joseph Campbell's archetypal journey. It's really what it's all about. And in the tarot, we look to the major arcana. I speak to that in my card readings often, if you watch those as well. That major arcana hero's archetypal journey that you're on, or heroine if you prefer. So and it's so interesting that this is just coming out. You know me, I just channel what's meant to come. I have an idea of where I want to go, and then very often we go somewhere else. I think it's interesting that this is all coming up now, because Sagittarius is the philosopher, the spiritual adventurer, the conqueror of different lands, and not just conqueror in terms of I'm going to conquer your religion and teach you mine. I mean, definitely there would have been an aspect of that with this archetype, but also I want to learn your culture. I want to see your land. So again, that could be the shadow and light of Sagittarius. You could have Sagittarius, the conqueror, the preacher that comes in and says, don't believe in your religion and your beliefs. Let me tell you mine. I want to convert you to mine. That can be a shadow trait here. And being more of a preacher than a teacher. You know, don't get too preachy and don't forget to listen. Sagittarius can have a problem sometimes listening. It's ruled by Jupiter. So I just want to point that out. If this new moon is ruled by Jupiter, so here's new moon. Remember that I've set this up for my part of the world. So when you do this or you look at, or I always prefer to say to you, just apply it to your own chart. Look at where 20 degrees of Sagittarius is in your chart, rather than thinking, oh, this new moon's happening in the third house. In my part of the world, as a mundane chart, it's happening in the third house. Somewhere else, probably for you. So what I want to say is, because it's at 20 degrees of Sagittarius, what I would do is if you are at 15 to 25 degrees of Sagittarius, or if you have planets or points at 15 to 25 degrees of the other fire signs, because that's going to activate a like element, like fire gives fire energy. Look there, that's positive and igniting. If you have anything from 15 to 25 degrees of the other mutable signs, this is going to be more challenging. So either at that particular one, if you have planets at 15 to 25 of Sagittarius, or Pisces, mutable water, or Gemini, mutable air, or Virgo, mutable earth, then those are going to be where this is going to give you a little bit of like a grind or a crunch or a squeeze and a pinch or a tug and a pull if it's the opposition. So if you have, for example, I have my sun opposed this moon in Gemini, late degrees Gemini. So there's going to be this kind of between my sun and where the sun is in the sky at this point and the moon is in the sky at this point. If you have that with the Virgo or Pisces, then you're going to have more of a squeezing change. It's easier to change at the square. It's more of a retching at the opposition. And when it's the conjunction, so it's in the Sagittarius space with you, let's say you are a Sagittarius with late degree Sagittarius sun, then you are going to find that this is going to be, I almost want to say like too much energy in one room. It's almost like this, like bubbling, ready to boil, like what's going to happen, what's going to come to the surface. But all of these things are there to, I always look at astrology from a positive lens. Even the challenging things for me, that's how I choose to view the world. And I'm not saying, I don't think it should be toxic positivity. That's going too far. Don't deny the challenge, but don't get so bogged down by the challenge that you know, woe is me and hate life all the time. Rather, what can I use? How can I use this? What is this here to teach me? Like that kind of a mentality. And that's very Sagittarian. But if we have these, and this Mars is still also pretty involved here, although the distance between Sun and Mars is now 7 degrees. So it's getting bigger, but he's still here in Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is the sign ruled by Jupiter. So that means Jupiter is in charge of Mars, Moon, and Sun. And here's Jupiter retrograde in Taurus. Jupiter is also the traditional ruler of Pisces. So he's also in charge of Saturn during this lunation and Neptune. So he's holding 5 planets, you know, in the palm of his hand. And he is being ruled himself in Venus's house of Taurus. He's being ruled by Venus, and Venus is opposite him in the chart. An opposition, a bit of a retching. Venus and Jupiter are looked at as the two benefics, or the luckier planets. He would be the greater benefic because he's bigger, and she would be the lesser benefic because she's smaller, amongst other things. Anyway, so if you imagine these two happy energies, like the two lucky love attractor kind of energies in the chart, having a tug of war, both wanting to win, and you would think, well, who's stronger? Well, he's much bigger. He's further out. The further out planet usually wins, so maybe he's stronger. However, she's in charge of him. So she's kind of got him by the short and curlies at the moment, because he's in her house and she's written a list of rules because he's a little bit over exuberant, and he tends to drink too much and break her glasses when he goes there and knock over her pot plants, and he doesn't repot them properly. And so she said, you can come and visit. I'm not going to be there. In fact, I'm going to be really uncomfortable on the other side of the chart in Scorpio, where I don't really like being very much, in Mars's house, which he always leaves traps for me in Scorpio, and I'm going to be trying to overcome these traps. So I want to know that you, Jupiter, are looking after my house properly. Here's a long list of rules and regs. Jupiter's not a big fan of rules and regs, so he's a bit frustrated, but so is she, because she doesn't like being in that place. So it's a tug of war, which one is stronger than which in this. They both have aspects that are not super happy, but that also means that both Jupiter and Venus have got this sort of something is irritating, something is niggling. And both of them are having an optimistic relationship at this moment with Mercury, who is about to go retrograde. So Venus is in sextile to Mercury, and Jupiter is in trine to Mercury. And Mercury is like, with him about to have his going retrograde basically at this moment, he's saying, okay, let's pare it back, you two, before we get into a big fight, before we look at everybody's, dirty laundry. Let's backtrack and see, why are you, Venus, feeling so trapped by Mars and concerned that he has a hidden camera watching you in the bathroom? And why, Jupiter, are you overindulging when you've got this beautiful home to stay in, that Venus has offered you the space where the fridge is always full and the couch is always comfy and the best linen in Taurus in that home, and yet you're not respecting her boundaries? Why is that? So Mercury's bringing us back, and these two are very important in the chart, even though they're not strictly speaking the energy we're looking at in this full moon, but their dynamic frustration, as there is this new beginning with Sun and Moon in Sagittarius, is really giving us the opportunity, because Jupiter's an expander, to think big, to think outside the box as we prepare to go on a journey, Jupiter, to be more, what is the damn word I'm looking for? Oh, you can tell Mercury is in shadow. I've got a word in my head and it won't come out. To be more accepting, to be more tolerant. These are not the words that I wanted to use, but they fit very well, of others. So this new moon, if we're not in the shadow of I want to conquer you and I want to make sure that you convert to my religions and philosophies, sexual ideals, etc., which can, as we said earlier, can be a Jupiter thing, I mean a Sagittarius thing. If you're not doing that, if you're going, let's build a world where we want the best for others, we can agree to disagree, we can have our own belief systems, as long as those belief systems do no harm, as long as we can allow one another grace, as long as we can allow one another compassion, understanding, empathy, with boundaries. So there is an aspect of this chart which is speaking to like a lack of boundaries. And so I feel like whilst we're looking at how can we expand and travel and journey into a world where there is more tolerance, acceptance, wisdom, because Jupiter can really, Jupiter as well, wisdom, but Sag can bring in a lot of wisdom. To get to this world, we may need to learn to say no. We may need to learn to stop people pleasing. We may need to learn to do the me first, because if I get me, if I understand me, if I travel my spiritual journey, if I travel my cultural journey, even if my cultural journey takes me to learning about others or keeps me in my box, it doesn't matter as long as I don't shoot outside of my box. Stay in your box, stay in your lane, but don't judge those that are in their own space. So remembering, where did I speak into this recently? I can't remember. Or maybe I think in my newsletter, and I just want to come back to that. Sagittarius is the final fire sign, and it's like the sparks and the embers that come off the fire. And I want you to imagine those embers come off the fire, and then they start blazing trails. As they land, they blaze little trails, and you can choose which trails to follow. And then also, so that is this journey energy of Jupiter and I keep saying Jupiter when I want to say Sagittarius, but they have a very similar feel. And then the other aspect of Sagittarius is the smoke that rises up from the fire, because there is such a connection to spirituality and higher understanding and expanding your awareness, not only out as you follow the fire trails, but up into the heavens, up into the higher realms. That is also a very important space. And all the while, we have Jupiter and Venus going. Venus says, but I want it to be loving, and I want it to be deep, and I want it to be passionate. And Jupiter says, I want to make everything bigger. I want to plant bigger farms. I want to bring everyone here tourist stuff. In the meantime, Mercury's going, let's just pull it back. Everybody, let's just pull it back. And he starts his retrograde in Capricorn. So he's going to give us the opportunity to look at how to rebuild, how to bring us all onto the same page, onto the same level. Let's pare it back, and then we can move forward. So personally, I quite like this energy, I have to say. And yeah, I mean, I didn't even really speak into here, but we also have the square between this new moon and Neptune. And I said a little bit about this in my Mercury retrograde, so I'll just touch on it. But basically, Neptune can really be this energy of the ideal, the dream, the fantasy, the fairy tale. And in Pisces, even more so, Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. He's really strong there, and he's really desiring of creating this beautiful world where we are all one, we all are compassionate and kind and all of those things. But also, there is, in Pisces, particularly with Neptune here, there is this deep, deep feeling. So as much as there is the ideal that Pisces Neptune has, there is also the real feeling of the very scary, sad, traumatic, violent, awful things that are happening in the world right now. And that can be so overwhelming, so like gut-wrenching and heart-squeezing, that there is also potential to numb out, whatever that is. So whatever your choice of drug is, whether you're a workaholic, whether you're a alcoholic, whether you're a sexaholic, whatever your thing is, that is potentially going to take over if you can't sit with the feelings. So it's about finding a balance here of what can I do? Fire likes to do. So we look at these guys. How can we start traveling in a direction of doing something better, making different choices, following the fire trails, following the smoke? But we have to feel the challenges within that. We have to feel the pain of the certain emotions within that, rather than numb them out, because that's the only way we get to the next stage. That's the only way we birth new earth. Something just flew into my window. So that is a little bit of a tricky one at this moon, I would say, the square to the new moon with Neptune. Both are ruled by Jupiter. So bring it back, ground him. Jupiter is in the grounded sign of Taurus. So bring it back to grounding exercises. Get out in nature. Go for nature walks. Imagine yourself the Sagittarian adventurer journeying down the path of the unknown. Imagine yourself with your arrow, your bow and arrow over your shoulders. And if you could shoot your arrows of intention, your arrows of love, your arrows of truth out into the world, where would you shoot them? Use your imagination, Neptune in Pisces. Use it as you actually move. Jupiter, oh, there I go again. Oh, God. Mercury. Okay. Sagittarius is the hips, thighs, and glutes. Move, get moving, take steps, take strides, dance. Just allow yourself to get grounded through movement in nature, preferably. Okay, that is me for this forecast. I hope that those who celebrate have a wonderful, maybe I'm doing another video before Christmas and certainly New Year, but have a wonderful, whatever you're having, have a wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for watching this forecast. Links for my offerings down below. Please like, share, follow, subscribe. I love your comments, so keep them coming, and thanks again for your time.